One of the more hot button topics in criminal justice reform today is cash bail reform. There are many advocates of criminal justice reform out there who want to see bail completely abolished or gone. Today, I want to talk about what bail is, what the advocates for those who want to abolish bail are saying, and then I want to give you my opinions on the topic. Thank you, everybody, for joining me today. I'm Joe Pometto, Joe the lawyer. I'm a practicing attorney in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My practice focuses on criminal defense. Therefore, I believe I have a unique position, unique voice to speak on this topic specifically. If you like my content, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. It's a free way to support my show. This show will always be free, but if you like, subscribe, comment, and share, it lets YouTube know that you are watching, and that will incentivize me to make more shows. So the reason I want to speak on this topic today is because a few weeks ago I was watching the Joe Rogan podcast, one of my favorite podcasts, and he had on a couple of lawyers. I believe one or maybe both of them were from California, and they were advocating for the complete abolishment of cash bail. And they came to the show armed with, a couple of documents that had statistics and numbers on it in order to support their arguments. That's always a good idea. That is not something that I have today, right? I'm just going to talk from experience and logic and then give you my opinions. But watching that show really got the wheels turning in my head, and I'm thinking to myself, is it a good idea to just abolish cash bail completely? And I'll give you my opinions on that in a second. But first, let's talk about what exactly bail is. Now, most people who have not been directly involved in the criminal justice system, and I hope that you have not, right? A lot of my clients, they get my phone number and they say, Joe, I'm so glad I have your number. I say to them, look, I hope you never have to call it, okay? I'm a criminal defense, personal injury, and family law attorney. If you have to call me, it means you've been arrested, you've been injured, or you're getting a divorce. And none of those scenarios are happy scenarios in a person's life. But if somebody has not been involved in the criminal justice system, they know what bail is from usually popular culture, television, the news, or something that they read. But let's talk about what it really is on a deeper level. I don't know exactly when cash bail started, but let's pretend we can go back in time 60, 70, 80, maybe even 100 years. Now, when a person is charged with a crime, they have a right to a fair and impartial trial. However, that trial, somebody gets arrested for, let's say, robbing a liquor store. That trial is not going to happen the next day. That trial is not going to happen the next week. More than likely, that trial is going to happen 6 months, a year down the road, especially today. Maybe back in the day it could happen faster, but there's a whole long process before someone can go to trial. So the government needs to incentivize people to show up for that trial date, or they need to force people to do it. One option they have is to make that individual sit in jail until their trial date, 6 months, a year into the future. Well, that's a little bit impractical and also not quite fair. So how do they incentivize someone that they're going to arrest and release to show up for a trial date in the future? Well, the system that we've come up with in this country is cash bail. And the way that works is you're arrested. If you post that bail, $1,000, $5,000, $50,000, $100,000, you post that bail, you get to leave the jail cell. You get to walk right out. However, if you don't show up for your court dates, you lose that money. Boom, the government gets to keep it. If you commit another crime, you may forfeit that money. Boom, the government gets to keep it. They'll put you back in jail, and then they will wait for your trial date to see whether or not you can get released. That is more or less how cash bail works. It's an incentive. It's a monetary incentive in a weird way to tell someone who's been charged with a crime, don't commit another crime, and you need to show up for your court dates. Let's do a quick coffee break here. So that is sort of the cash bail system in a nutshell. Now, how do the judges determine bail? Well, they determine it on your prior criminal history, and this is called a risk analysis. They do it based on your prior criminal history, the seriousness of the crime. So if it's a very serious crime like homicide, or let's say you stole hundreds of thousands of dollars, you're going to get a higher bail because they think only that large amount of money will incentivize someone to show up back to court, right? If it's a very, very serious crime. And they're going to look at the chances that you would flee. So they want to look at the odds that you would reoffend, the odds that you would flee, and the seriousness of the crime itself. Now, all of those sort of interplay with each other, right? Because if you're charged with a very serious crime where you could get the death penalty or go to jail for life, go to prison for life, they're going to have to set your bail extremely high, or perhaps not give you a bail at all. So in a nutshell, that's sort of how the bail system works. Now, the people who are advocating for the abolishment of the cash bail system say that this system impacts people who don't have money in an unfair and unequal way. Let me give you a short example, which I'm sure occurs in certain jurisdictions. A person gets charged with, let's say, multiple crimes, all right? They may be addicted to drugs, and they go on, let's call it a retail theft, robbery spree. They rob a Walmart, they rob a Target, maybe, who knows, a convenience store. And what can happen is, on each of those cases, the judge may look at this person and say, well, these crimes aren't that serious, but they keep going out, they keep committing crimes. There's an obvious drug problem, and what we need to do is I'm not going to set a real high bail, but I am going to put a cash bail on this person because they just keep breaking the law. So I'm going to put $1,000 on this one, $1,000 on that one, and $1,000 on the other one. Now, this person, because of their drug addiction, etc., they may not be able to come up with the money to get out of jail. So on some minor offenses, they may sit in jail for 3 months, 6 months, up to a year, just because they don't have the money to post it. And this is where the argument comes from. They say, look, this person can't come up with the $3,000 or maybe even the $300 that they would need to go and hire a bail bondsman who would post the rest of that money for them. And so they're going to sit in jail just because they don't have any money. And that is unfair. This cash bail system disproportionately impacts poor people. Therefore, judges should not be making decisions on whether someone walks out of jail or someone sits in jail until their court date, okay, based on how much money that person has. The system shouldn't be set up to punish someone who doesn't have money, because somebody with a lot of money who committed the same crimes may be able to post that cash bail and go free. So it's disproportionately impacting poor people. They are sitting in jail longer for smaller, less serious crimes, And the proponents of abolishing the system say that that is unfair. Now, I agree with these people, but only to a certain degree. All right. These individuals want to abolish cash bail completely. And I do not think that that is the route to go. And let me talk about my own personal experiences as a criminal defense attorney. I represent many people who barely have enough money to hire an attorney and or post cash bail. However, currently, under the current system in Pennsylvania, there are options other than cash bail. And let me give you an example. Let's say I had a person who was arrested on a retail theft, and the judge gave them a $5,000 bail, and they don't have the money to come up with that. What I can do as an attorney is I can file a motion and I can ask the judge to give them some sort of alternative to cash bail. One of those alternatives is house arrest or electronic home monitoring. And this happens all the time where that person, the judge may say, look, this person has a problem, they're addicted to drugs, but they have a long record of minor crimes and a long record of not showing up to court. So the judge doesn't feel comfortable with just releasing them outright. What can he do? He can do electronic home monitoring. They put a GPS bracelet on that individual. That person can go home and can, not sit in jail, but still has an incentive. The court still has some supervision over them and can force them to come to court in the future. Or if they skip town or if they don't show up, then the probation office or the pretrial office will be notified, and the police or the sheriff can go and find this person. So that's one alternative to cash bail, house arrest, which is currently in place, I would imagine, everywhere in the country. Another alternative is what I would call, funny enough, I'm going to use this word over and over again, alternative housing. So instead of jail, if you're dealing with a poor person who has a drug problem, they can be sent to a sort of semi-secured halfway house. And at that halfway house, the person can be supervised, that person can be treated, all right? And the person can still be incentivized or told to show up for their court dates in the future and to show up for their trial in the future. Again, it gives the courts a degree of control over the person rather than just letting them out completely with no cash bail, which is called non-monetary bond or ROR, release on your own recognizance, okay? Rather than doing one of those things, it gives the court a degree of control over that individual. So right now, where I practice in Pittsburgh, Western Pennsylvania, the judges have all of those options to work with. They can give someone a cash bail, or they can set someone's bail to house arrest so that they're released and they're monitored, or they can send someone to alternative housing where they are released and also monitored and or supervised. And of course, they can always go ahead and release somebody on ROR or non-monetary bond, which has always existed. So what the proponents of the abolishment of cash bail seem to say is there's only two choices. You either have a no cash bail system or you have a cash bail system. And that's not the case. Right now, and this exists in most of the country, a judge can release somebody on their own recognizance based on their risk profile, right? How serious the crime was. What are the chances the person will reoffend, and what are the chances that the person will not show up for their court date? So the judge is going to take this into account and say, look, you're a first-time DUI offender, okay? You have a job, your own residence. I'm going to give you ROR, boom, no cash bail, you're gone. All right. Second option is a cash bail, and it can be a small cash bail or a large cash bail. But we're gonna, if you can post this bail, you know, you're going to be able to go free, just like you're sort of on ROR after you post this bail. But the judge can also take into account this: a poor individual doesn't have a lot of money. We'll put them on house arrest, or we will put them in alternative housing. So there's 4 options: release with no conditions, cash bail, house arrest, or alternative housing, or finally, jail or no bond at all. But right now, the judges have a variety of tools in their toolkit in order to correctly tailor what the bond should be for an individual person. So what the people who want to abolish cash bail, they say they don't want that to be an option for the judge. If you abolish cash bail outright, all of a sudden the judge only has 3 tools in their toolkit, or 2 instead of 4, right? And that would be, the judge can just do ROR, non-monetary, release on your own recognizance, or deny you bail outright, or put you on electronic home monitoring, or put you into a halfway house. The problem with the proponents of the people, with the ideas of the people who want to abolish the cash bail completely, is they're removing a tool from the judge's toolkit. Now, I agree that cash bail should not be used as often as it is. It should be based on a means test. So it should depend on whether the person who is charged with the crime can actually post the bail. But I do not believe that it should be gotten rid of completely. I don't believe it should be gone completely. And the reason is, you're going to have these cases that fall somewhere in the middle, right? Where the person has a decent risk profile, but also should not necessarily be denied the opportunity to be released into the community. For example, let's take like a simple assault or a domestic violence case. That's a very serious crime where you have a violent offender. If you get rid of cash bail completely, the judge may only have 2 options. That is, release this person out into the world again, or keep them in jail. And the reason I remove those other 2 options, because in either system that's going to be available. Okay. And the thing also to remember is that a community or a county may not always have the resources to put everybody into house arrest, or everybody into an alternative program. So this person who maybe has an anger issue and has committed a domestic violence crime, the judge is going to say, I really don't feel that good about releasing that person, and boom, their bond is going to be denied outright. Whereas if the judge had the option to do cash bond, he may say, look, I will give this person an opportunity to be released, but I'm going to give them a high bond, say $75,000. $75,000 is a lot of money. It's likely enough to incentivize this person, who may be, let's say a middle class corporate employee. Okay, and again, it's a violent crime. Remember that. This $75,000 bond would be viewed as enough to keep the person from offending again, and to incentivize the person to show up for the court dates, in a situation where the crime is sort of serious, but the judge doesn't want to deny this person their freedom outright. Okay, right there in those middle cases, I think cash bond is very fitting. If you abolish it outright, what you're going to see is, yes, more poor people with small offenses will not have to sit in jail for extended periods of time. But you're also going to get some people who, under a cash bail system, would have been able to get out of jail will no longer have that option. Under the cash bail, the judge could have set a high cash bail and the person might have been able to make it and be released and still be incentivized to show back up and not commit crimes. But under the new system, there are going to be some losers. If the only option the judge has is to let the person go outright, which is called ROR, non-monetary, or keep them in jail, some people are going to lose because of that. So that's my argument against the people who want to abolish cash bail. I do believe that cash bail should be used less often, but why take it out of the toolkit? Why remove it from the toolkit outright? Why not allow the judges to have more options so that they can specifically tailor the bond to that individual's case? I believe that is the best scenario. So instead of abolishing cash bail outright, perhaps set in place more stringent guidelines or do a means test so that judges don't just drop $10,000 cash bails on every defendant who comes through, every individual who comes through. Rather, make sure the judge has guidelines and means testing so that they can understand the person's whole picture. Therefore, if the person has the means to pay a cash bail and it's appropriate to the case, it can still be used. I agree with the ideas of the people who want to abolish it, that low-level offenders who get nailed with small cash bails and they can't bring a penny up, I do believe that that's unfair. And there should be systems in place that prevent that from happening. But to get rid of that option from the toolkit, to remove a judge's ability to tailor a case, when what they should have is a whole plethora of options, I do not agree with that. Cash bail can be fitting for a variety of cases, specifically those ones that are right in the middle. So even though it sounds really great when you hear in a sentence, let's just get rid of cash bail, it might feel really great. I don't think that it will lead to the most just and fair consequences. I think what is better is to allow the judges to still have cash bail as a tool in certain circumstances, but not to remove it completely. The more tools in the toolkit for a judge, the better the result will be because they can tailor it to every specific case. So don't get caught up in the hype. Think about these things a little bit deeper. Do your reading, do your research before you just jump on the train. I am for a certain degree of bail reform, but I don't think we need to just throw cash bail out of the window completely. It can be very appropriate in certain circumstances, especially where the person accused of the crime has the means to post the cash bail or to post a high cash bail. But it should not be used for low-level offenders who cannot afford to post that bail. Instead, they should be looked at with cash bail not exactly being an option for them. So I hope you enjoyed this insight. I'm Joe Pometto, Joe the lawyer. If you like my show, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. It's a free way to support my content, and YouTube will reward me for it. Thank you very much for your time. Joe the lawyer out.